Cosmic horror isn't just about tentacles and incomprehensible gods, though let's be real here, there are a lot of those. It's about the sheer soul-crushing realization that humanity is insignificant, the universe is unknowable, and the only thing more terrifying than death is the truth lurking behind reality's thin veil. Today, we're diving into 3 games that don't just incorporate cosmic horror, they embody it. Each of these games I'm about to cover tackles the genre's core themes: insanity, the insignificance of humanity, and grotesque physical horror in their own uniquely disturbing ways. So if you ever wanted to feel utterly powerless while shooting monsters in the face, congratulations, you found the right video. Before we descend into these digital nightmares, let's take a moment to understand what makes cosmic horror cosmic. Born from the fevered imagination of H.P. Lovecraft in the early 20th century, cosmic horror revolves around the fundamental insignificance of humanity in an uncaring, possibly hostile universe. It's not just that monsters exist, it's that we're ants to them, barely worth noticing. And when they do notice us, well, that's when things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean soul-destroyingly terrifying. The truly insidious aspect of cosmic horror is its attack on our most basic comforts. The reliability of our senses, the soundness of our minds, and the nature of reality itself. Remember, nothing is sacred, nothing is certain, and knowledge, traditionally our greatest weapon, becomes our undoing. The more you understand, the more you wish you didn't. So go ahead and grab your shotguns, your plasma cutters, and your trick weapons. We're about to stare right into the abyss. Just remember though, it's definitely staring back. Back in 1996, id Software followed up Doom with Quake, and while most people remember it for pioneering 3D shooters, the game's horror elements are what truly stand the test of time. While Doom was all about gunning down demons from hell, Quake went a different route, embracing Lovecraftian horror. It didn't just throw monsters at you, it made you feel like a rat in a maze built by gods who don't care if you exist. What many don't know is that Quake's atmosphere wasn't just a happy accident. John Romero at the team at id Software were heavily influenced by Lovecraft's works. The game's original concept was far more ambitious and horror-focused, a dark medieval fantasy similar to what would be seen in games like Hexen. While that version never really materialized with Quake, the cosmic horror elements remained, albeit wrapped in the packaging of a first-person shooter. Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails fame crafted the game's unsettling soundtrack, further cementing Quake's position as more than just a shooter. It's a descent into madness set to an industrial nightmare ambience soundtrack. The result is a gaming experience that, even decades later, feels less like playing a game and more like being trapped in someone else's nightmare. From the get-go, Quake ditches any semblance of a coherent world. You aren't fighting an organized force. You're up against shambling abominations that look like they fell out of a fever dream. The environments are a surreal blend of medieval castles, grotesque temples, and eldritch dimensions. There's no logic to them because, well, logic doesn't exist where these creatures come from. Consider the name of Quake's episodes, for instance: Dimension of the Doomed, the Realm of Black Magic, the Netherworld, and the Elder World. Each title suggests realms beyond human comprehension, places where the laws of nature are just mere suggestions. As you progress through each dimension, the architecture becomes increasingly impossible. Floating platforms over seas of lava, non-Euclidean chambers that really shouldn't exist, and castle walls that bleed when shot. Its reality is interpreted by a mind that's slowly slipping away. The lighting in this game, however, really it deserves special mention. Quake was one of the first games to introduce dynamic lighting, and id Software weaponized this technology to create a perpetual sense of dread. Shadows aren't just dark spots, they're hiding places for unknowable terrors. The game's murky palette of browns and grays isn't a limitation of 90s technology, it's a deliberate choice to make you feel like you're peering through a veil of sanity into something fundamentally wrong. The big bad of Quake is Shub-Niggurath, who in the game is codenamed Quake, a direct nod to Lovecraft's mythology. Unlike your average video game boss, you really don't even fight Shub-Niggurath in a conventional way, because how do you fight something beyond comprehension? You just teleport inside it and hope for the best. That's cosmic horror in a nutshell. You don't win, you just survive slightly longer than everyone else. The fight against this final boss perfectly encapsulates the futility at the heart of cosmic horror. You don't defeat it with superior firepower or skillful dodging. Instead, you use a teleporter to displace a small part of yourself into its body. In the world of Quake, victory isn't about conquering evil. It's about postponing the inevitable for just a little while longer. Quake plays with the idea that reality is a fragile, shifting thing. The slipgates you travel through don't just connect locations, they feel like they're warping reality itself. It's never clear if you're actually traveling to different worlds or if the universe is just wrong. The game's sparse storytelling also contributes to this sense of disorientation. You're given minimal context for your actions, just enough to know that you need to keep moving and keep killing. This narrative minimalism isn't laziness, it's a deliberate choice to make you feel adrift in a universe that doesn't bother explaining itself to insignificant beings like humans. From the monstrous shambler with its furry, faceless, electric-shooting body to the grotesque vor and fiends, Quake is filled with horrors that don't belong in any sane reality. And that's the point. Quake makes you feel like an intruder in a universe that doesn't care if you exist. Let's take a closer look at the Shambler, a hulking, Yeti-like creature with a gaping bloody maw, razor-sharp claws, and the ability to channel lightning. It doesn't just attack you, it reaches out with impossibly long arms, as if space itself bends to its will. The ogres wield chainsaws and grenade launchers, tools of human warfare, twisted and repurposed by entities that barely understand what they're using. Spawn are floating, jumping sacks of flesh that explode upon death, turning their own destruction into a weapon. These monsters aren't just designed to be scary, they're violations of natural law. Their very existence suggests a universe where biology, physics, and reality itself are malleable concepts subject to the whims of beings far beyond human understanding. Quake's influence on cosmic horror and gaming cannot be overstated. Without its groundbreaking blend of shooter mechanics and Lovecraftian dread, we might never have gotten games like Half-Life, which took the concept of shifting realities and ran with it, or even later titles like Control, which embraced the idea of reality as a fragile construct. What makes Quake's approach to cosmic horror so effective even today is its restraint. It doesn't explain its horrors or try and make them comprehensible, it simply presents you with the unthinkable and forces you to deal with it, one shotgun shell at a time. In doing so, it captures the essence of cosmic horror better than many games that came after it, despite, or perhaps because of, its technological limitations.
We are all awake now, awake and hungry. But where is it? Take us home, Isaac. Make us whole.
If Quake is about unknowable gods and twisted dimensions, Dead Space is about something just as terrifying: the complete and utter lack of a benevolent universe. Dead Space takes cosmic horror and fuses it with sci-fi, showing us that the void isn't just empty, it's hungry. Visceral Games created something really special with Dead Space in 2008. On the surface, it's a survival horror game about engineer Isaac Clarke responding to a distress call from the USG Ishimura, a massive planet-cracking mining vessel. But beneath that premise lies a cosmic horror narrative that rivals even the best of Lovecraft's work. The genius of Dead Space lies in its setting. Space, the vast, empty vacuum between the stars. It's already inherently terrifying. We're not meant to survive there. By placing its horror in the void, Dead Space immediately taps into our primal fear of the unknown and the inhospitable. The Ishimura isn't just a spaceship, it's a metal coffin floating in an endless abyss where no one can hear you scream and no one is coming to save you.
Oh my god. I feel dead.
At the center of Dead Space is the Marker, an artifact of unknown origin that whispers into the minds of those who find it. Its very presence warps reality, driving people to madness, and transforms corpses into grotesque, writhing horrors known as necromorphs. This right here is pure cosmic horror. Its existence alone is enough to unravel the minds of those around it. The most horrifying aspect here, though? Humans, in all their hubris, think they can control it.
7 was off limits. The planet was one big government experiment. The marker, this divine artifact, it was built by human hands.
Plot twist. They can't. The red marker found on Aegis 7 is just a copy of the black marker, a truly alien artifact found on Earth thousands of years ago. This revelation is perhaps the most chilling aspect of Dead Space's narrative, that this horror isn't something we just stumbled upon in the depths of space. It's been on our home planet all along, patiently waiting for humanity to reach a point where we could spread its influence beyond a single world.
Are you so worried about? The marker is divine.
The Church of Unitology, a religion centered around the markers, adds another layer to the cosmic horror. It's a cult that worships these artifacts, believing that they will bring convergence, a form of rebirth and unity. Now, what they don't realize, or perhaps do realize in the case of the Church's inner circle, is that this convergence means the end of individual human existence, the creation of a brethren moon, a planet-sized necromorph formed from the biomass of an entire world's population, its extinction disguised as salvation, and people are lining up for it. The protagonist of this game, Isaac Clarke, doesn't just fight necromorphs, he fights his own mind. The marker infects his thoughts, making him question what's real and what isn't. By the end of the game, it's clear that even if Isaac survives, he'll never truly escape what he's seen. Dead Space masterfully blurs the line between external and internal horror. Are the visions he sees real, or are they manifestations of his deteriorating mental state? The game presents hallucinations not just as mere jump scares, but as fundamental breaks in reality, moments where the fabric of perception tears, revealing something worse underneath. The sequel, Dead Space 2, takes this concept even further. Isaac, starting out at a mental institution in Titan Sprawl, is haunted by visions of his dead girlfriend Nicole, who in fact was never actually alive on the Ishimura in the first game, killed herself during the outbreak, and is just a hallucination created by the marker to manipulate him. His mind has become a battlefield where the marker's influence fights against his fragile human consciousness, and the most terrifying part, sometimes he can't tell which thoughts are his own. There's a sequence in Dead Space 2 that perfectly captures this horror. Isaac must insert a needle into his own eye to access certain parts of his brain where the marker code resides. The player has to guide this needle with careful precision. One wrong move, and the needle plunges too deep, killing Isaac instantly. It's a literal representation of the game's themes. The pursuit of knowledge is necessary but dangerous, and looking too deeply into the abyss might destroy you. Easily one of the best creatures or monsters in a video game, necromorphs are the ultimate in body horror. Twisted, reanimated corpses reshaped into weapons. Their existence is an insult to biology. You don't kill them with headshots because they don't need heads. You dismember them, piece by piece, because the only way to stop something so fundamentally wrong is to dismantle it entirely. The design of necromorphs deserves special attention as well. They aren't zombies or generic monsters. They're human bodies transformed in ways that deliberately violate our understanding of anatomy. The slasher, the most common enemy, has blade-like appendages bursting from its shoulders. The pregnant, similar to the slasher, keeps a swarm of smaller creatures in its distended abdomen. Yeah, that fucking enemy. The divider splits into multiple parts when damaged, each part continuing to attack independently. These designs aren't just meant to disgust you, though they certainly do that. They're meant to communicate that the laws of biology no longer apply here. Human bodies, once familiar and understood, become alien and threatening. Your own flesh becomes an enemy waiting to be transformed. Dead Space's signature weapon, the plasma cutter, reinforces this theme. It's not a weapon at all, it's a mining tool, designed to cut through mineral deposits. That you use it to dismember what were once human beings is a grim reminder in this game that in the face of cosmic horror, our technology and understanding are repurposed in desperate, often futile attempts at survival. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of Dead Space's cosmic horror is its sense of scale. As the series progresses, we learn that the markers and the necromorphs are part of a life cycle, a means of creating brethren moons, planet-sized entities that consume all organic life on a world. These moons form a network across the galaxy, suggesting that this cycle of extinction has been repeating for millions, perhaps billions of years. The final revelation at the end of Dead Space 3 Awakened is that Earth itself has fallen to this cycle. It drives home the core message of cosmic horror. Resistance is ultimately futile. The scale of the threat is too vast, the enemy too alien, and too implacable. Humanity's extinction isn't just possible, it's inevitable, engineered by forces that were ancient when our species was still swinging in the trees. In this way, Dead Space transforms the emptiness of space into something worse than simply empty. It's a graveyard of civilizations that, like us, thought they were special, thought they mattered. They didn't, and neither do we.
It's all dead space. No alien life exists out in the universe. In a way, I guess he was right. There is no life beyond our system. Only a trail of extinction wrought by the moons.
And then there's Bloodborne. The game that doesn't just flirt with cosmic horror, it fully commits to it. While it starts off as a gothic horror tale of werewolves and plague, it soon reveals its true nature. You are nothing, the gods are real, and they don't even notice you. From Software and Miyazaki created something unique with Bloodborne in 2015. It begins as a seemingly straightforward gothic horror tale set in Yharnam, a Victorian-inspired city ravaged by a mysterious beastly plague. Players take on the role of the unnamed hunter, tasked with slaughtering the beasts that roam the streets and uncovering the source of the scourge. But this initial premise is merely a veil, a comfortable fiction that the game systematically dismantles as you progress. The true horror of Bloodborne isn't the werewolves or the blood-crazed citizens. It's the realization that these threats are merely symptoms of something far more terrifying. The influence of cosmic entities beyond human comprehension. The Great Ones. Bloodborne introduces us to the Great Ones, beings beyond human comprehension that exist on another plane of reality. Unlike traditional gods, they don't demand worship. They don't even acknowledge humanity unless we force their attention, and when we do, the results are catastrophic. The Great Ones in Bloodborne aren't malevolent in the traditional sense. They don't hate humanity or actively seek to destroy us. Their actions, such as the granting of eldritch knowledge, the manipulation of human evolution, the creation of the hunter's dream, are driven by motivations we cannot comprehend. What makes this approach to cosmic deities so effective is how it subverts our expectations of divinity. In most mythologies, gods may be capricious or cruel, but they're fundamentally understandable entities with human-like emotions and desires. The Great Ones are nothing like this, at all. Their very forms defy comprehension, writhing masses of tentacles, eyes, and other appendages arranged in ways that shouldn't be possible. Take Ebrides, daughter of the cosmos, for example. She was left behind by other Great Ones, found in an abandoned altar beneath the city. Despite her immense power, there's something tragic about her existence, a cosmic entity stranded and alone. Yet even in this state, she still is fundamentally alien, her form a jumble of wings, tentacles, and a head that seems to be nothing but a cluster of dangly appendages. Or consider Rom, the vacuous spider, a being that was once human but ascended to become a Great One, yet in doing so lost all semblance of humanity or intelligence. Rom doesn't attack out of malice but out of instinct, like a simple creature protecting itself. Yet this vacuous being holds back the true horror of reality, her existence creating a veil that, when pierced, reveals the blood moon and accelerates Yharnam's descent into madness. Speaking of madness, one of the game's core mechanics is insight, a literal representation of cosmic horror's impact on the mind. The more insight you have, the more you see, such as hidden monsters, shifting realities, and the terrifying truth that the world you thought you knew was a lie. And the kicker here? The more you understand, the more you descend into madness. Knowledge isn't power in Bloodborne, it's a curse. Insight in Bloodborne isn't just a gameplay mechanic. It's a narrative device that brilliantly illustrates the cost of forbidden knowledge. Now, at 0 insight, you're ignorant, but you're safe. As your insight increases, you begin to perceive things that were always there but hidden from human perception. Take the amygdala, for instance, massive spider-like creatures clinging to buildings throughout Yharnam. However, higher insight comes with consequences. Enemies gain new, more dangerous attacks. Certain creatures can only be encountered with sufficient insight. Your resistance to frenzy, a status effect that represents the mind breaking under cosmic revelation, also decreases. In Bloodborne, seeing the truth makes you more vulnerable, not less. The most brilliant aspect of the insight system is how it makes the player complicit in their own descent into madness. Each boss you defeat, each eldritch artifact you find, each ritual you perform increases your insight. Your pursuit of progress in the game mirrors your character's pursuit of the truth, and both lead inexorably towards horror and madness. Central to Bloodborne's narrative is the Healing Church, an organization that discovered the old blood in the ancient labyrinths beneath Yharnam. In their arrogance, they believed they could use this blood to elevate humanity, to transcend our limitations, and become something greater. This theme, humans meddling with forces beyond their understanding, is a staple of cosmic horror dating back to Lovecraft's stories. But Bloodborne adds layers of complexity to this trope. Their research led to miraculous healing properties in the blood. Progress was made, and lives were saved. But there's a saying in Yharnam:
Fear the old blood.
By the gods, fear it.
the blood ministration that initially seemed like a miracle cure gradually revealed its true nature. It wasn't elevating humanity. It was transforming people into beasts. The church's response? Form the hunters to slaughter these beasts in secret, hiding their mistakes from the population and continuing their research. As the player delves deeper into the church's secrets, they discover ever more disturbing experiments. The orphanage, a place where children were infused with cosmic essence in an attempt to create an artificial great one. The research hall, where patients' heads were enlarged to grow extra eyes on the inside in hopes of achieving higher evolution. The School of Mensis, with their ritual to contact the Great Ones directly, resulting in the stillbirth of their minds and the creation of the Nightmare of Mensis. Each revelation drives home the central message. Human ambition, when directed at the cosmic, leads only to ruin. Now, like Dead Space, Bloodborne revels in grotesque body horror. Humans transform into beasts, minds collapse under the weight of forbidden knowledge, and even the Great Ones themselves are grotesque mockeries of life. The Orphan of Kos, for example, is one of the most disturbing bosses in the game. It's a writhing, malformed infant, screaming in rage and agony, because, in the end, existence itself is suffering. Body horror in Bloodborne operates on multiple levels. There's the obvious transformation of humans into beasts, a gradual process where people first lose their minds, then watch as their bodies twist and elongate into wolf-like or more bizarre forms. But then, the deliberate transformation pursued by the scholars of Byrgenwerth, scholars who sought to line their brains with eyes in hopes of achieving the cosmic insight of the Great Ones. The most disturbing examples come from those who did succeed, or at least partially, in their attempts at ascension. The celestial emissaries, blue alien-like creatures, were once human orphans, or humans in general, transformed through experimentation. Ebrietas herself may have once been a human before becoming a Great One. But perhaps the most horrifying is the One Reborn, a massive creature composed of dozens of human bodies fused together, constantly writhing and shifting. It's the end result of the School of Mensis' ritual gone wrong, an attempt to create a vessel for a Great One that resulted instead in a mindless abomination. These transformations aren't portrayed as empowering or transcendent. They're painful, degrading, and ultimately futile attempts to become something humans were never meant to be. The body horror in Bloodborne isn't just gore for shock value. It's a physical manifestation of the game's central theme, that some knowledge comes at too high of a price. Bloodborne's setting extends beyond the physical reality of Yharnam into various dreamlands, realms created or influenced by the Great Ones. The Hunter's Dream serves as your hub area, a seemingly safe space created by the Great One Moon Presence and maintained by Gehrman, the first hunter. But even this sanctuary is ultimately a prison, keeping you bound to the endless hunt. As you progress, you discover other dreamlands, the Nightmare Frontier, the Hunter's Nightmare, and the Nightmare of Mensis. Each is a twisted reflection of reality, populated by beings that not only died in the waking world and continue to exist in these dreams, but beings naturally existing in these locations already. Now, that first concept, the concept that death might not be the end, that consciousness could be trapped forever in a nightmare, adds another layer of existential dread to Bloodborne's horror. The true nature of these realms is never fully explained, but they do seem to exist as layers of reality accessible only to those with sufficient insight or those who have been marked by great ones. They follow their own rules, their own twisted logic, which further emphasizes how little humans understand about the true nature of their existence. One of Bloodborne's most disturbing revelations comes in the form of its various endings. No matter what choice you make, such as submitting to Gehrman and leaving the dream, replacing Gehrman as the new Guardian, or transforming into an infant Great One, the cycle continues. This cyclical nature of existence is central to cosmic horror. The cosmic forces at work in Bloodborne's universe have existed for eons before humanity and will continue long after we're gone. In the true ending, where you consume 3 umbilical cords from infant Great Ones and defeat both Gehrman and the Moon Presence, you don't save the world or end the nightmare. You simply replace one eldritch horror with another. Yourself, transformed into a Great One to be cared for by the doll. The cycle of birth, death, and rebirth continues, with you now playing a different role in it. This ending perfectly encapsulates the futility that lies at the heart of cosmic horror. Even when you win, when you achieve the ultimate transformation and ascend beyond humanity, nothing fundamentally changes. The cosmos continues, indifferent to your achievement. So, what do Quake, Dead Space, and Bloodborne teach us about cosmic horror? Simple, that reality is fragile, knowledge is dangerous, and the universe doesn't give a damn about you. Whether it's Quake's eldritch labyrinths, Dead Space's nihilistic void, or Bloodborne's maddening revelations, these games remind us that horror isn't just about fear, it's about confronting the incomprehensible. These 3 games, despite their different approaches and mechanics, all understand the fundamental truth of cosmic horror. It's not about the monster under the bed, it's about the universe itself being the monster. It's about the realization that everything we thought we knew is wrong, that our existence is insignificant, and that the truth, if we could comprehend it, would drive us mad. Quake throws you into a nightmare realm where reality itself is broken, ruled by entities that barely acknowledge your existence. Dead Space takes the cold emptiness of space and fills it with a horror that transforms human bodies into weapons against themselves. Bloodborne begins with werewolves and ends with you staring into the face of cosmic gods, your mind cracking under the weight of knowledge that no human was ever meant to possess. In each case, the protagonists don't save the world or vanquish evil forever. The Ranger in Quake merely banishes the forces temporarily. Isaac Clarke in Dead Space manages to survive, but the markers and their influence spread throughout the entirety of space. And the Hunter in Bloodborne, regardless of which ending you choose, cannot stop the cycle of the hunt. They can only choose their role within it. This right here is the brilliance of cosmic horror in gaming. It uses the interactive nature of the medium to make you complicit in your own descent. And yet, despite the bleakness, the futility, we keep playing. We keep pushing forward. We keep seeking answers. And we keep staring into the abyss. Perhaps that's the most human thing about us. It's our need to know, even when knowledge brings only pain. Or perhaps simply it's that, as these games suggest, we're drawn to the cosmic like moths to a flame, unable to resist the pull of forces greater than ourselves. And what's the best way to cope with that? Well, in classic video game fashion, shoot first, ask existential questions later. Thank you guys so much for watching this video if you stuck with it to the end. If you enjoyed this descent into madness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more cosmic horror, analog horror, and basically anything horror related. Also, be sure to check out my members only section. It's going to include a lot of stuff you're definitely going to need the insight to see. Remember too, if you ever hear strange whispers coming from an ancient artifact, maybe just leave it alone. Or, don't. I'm not in charge of you. Just don't come crying to me when reality starts unraveling around you and you find yourself with too many eyes and not enough sanity. But hey, look on the bright side. At least you'll have knowledge to see things as they truly are. And isn't that worth everything? Thanks, guys. Love y'all. Good night. Stay weird.